Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to Follow-Up Friday. This one is packed with some just real good stuff for you guys. We got Ravens, we've got Dragon Eggs, we've got trivia, we've got all sorts of stuff.
I've not looked at any of these Ravens yet.
That's okay.
That's how I like to do it.
I
like to just go into it, okay?
That's great. That's awesome. So do we want to do trivia first?
Yeah, let's trivia. So the winner. So the question was, what was the name of a wildling wife? This is kind of like they're warriors. The answer is Spearwife, and the winner, Lady Lauren.
Let's go.
Yeah, reclaiming. I think she was she the first trivia winner?
She
was the first one to steal it from Lord Adam
Parker. Yeah. She got in there.
Yeah.
And honestly, she's been, I think, second and third here, different weeks in and out. So
yeah. So anyway, Sir Ezra, I asked him this one last week. He was caught off guard.
Spearwife one.
Yeah,
and I'm also caught off guard by this other one.
This next one, yeah,
because I'm just not a fan of the Ironborn. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, so this one I'm just gonna say is tricky.
Yeah. Yep. To say the least.
What is the name of a true Ironborn wife? I will repeat that again. What is the name of a true Ironborn wife?
And I wouldn't give any more hints. I would just emphasize the word true.
True.
That's all I would emphasize. So, I think that's a lot of fun. And I'm going to have to update the doc here this weekend. So hopefully by Saturday, I should know who the next winner is, and we can update that. And then we've talked about doing that point system, and I know people were excited to maybe do something like that and get points for second. Play. Well, I mean, we talked about a window. We're still working on that, but we have right now. It's first come, first serve.
Yeah, but we've come up with, I think, a better idea.
Yeah.
And that is, we wanted to give people an opportunity this is for the people who maybe don't live in good time zones for when we release the episode. And stuff like that. So this is how it works, is we just randomly kind of I'll just kind of say something. The way it works is I'm kind of an ideas person, and Sir Ezra is kind of the guy who comes in and is starts to shape my ideas.
The details.
We need to find details. And I had said, what if it's something about like Easter eggs, and then I said, well, maybe we call it dragon eggs, and then Sir Ezra went nuts, and then we came up with this great idea. And so what we're going to do is, and we kind of said it because last week we had said, if you can find the point that we actually had to stop the podcast.
Yeah.
And
the only time we've
ever done it, because we have to do everything in one take. We'll send you something. We haven't really decided on what yet. Lady Kelsey is going nuts.
She's going crazy.
Nuts trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I do believe I gave a hint and said it isn't a follow-up Friday, so at least I should cut that down. But that kind of.
Can I also give one, since we haven't had anybody? Let's just say this: Sir Ezra is really stumped.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, he's really good at editing. So.
But that's the only time.
That's the only time we've ever done it. We one-shot everything.
Everything.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll tell you if we don't.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've turned it into this idea into this dragon egg contest, which we're subbing out for the idea of Easter eggs. So what we're going to do is we're going to do these every couple months, every so often.
Yeah.
And
two to 3 months.
Yeah. The way it works is we will think about something that we said, maybe a specific phrase. And it can be for any episode we've ever used this term. Any episode. All you got to do is timestamp it, send us an email, and please title the email Dragon Egg.
Yep.
Dragon Egg Contest, so then it'll be a lot easier. You have 1 week.
Yep.
So this will be, we always record these on Thursday. They post on Friday.
Yep.
So 1 week from Friday. So, okay. To find any time we've said this phrase, and it puts you into a drawing, so anyone can enter.
Yeah.
And we'll draw the names out of a hat. We're gonna do a first place and a second place, and then we're gonna send you a prize.
Yep. So it'll be you have till the 27th to go find a phrase, which we're about to kind of talk about here. And once you locate that phrase, you timestamp it, send us the time that we said it in the episode. And the first one we're going to do is pretty easy. I mean, we've said it quite a bit.
Pretty easy. We'll say it was in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It should be pretty simple to find.
It should. So, and then that enters you once I get I go check the timestamp if it's the right phrase and it all works out, then cool.
And I'll say this: it includes any episode we've recorded.
It's true.
That goes all the way back, even before we decided to bend the knee. Any of that stuff will work as well.
It will.
If you wanna. If you know a specific spot there, that should make it really easy.
Yeah, it should.
Really easy. If you just look at the way some of those episodes are titled.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so the phrase is as thick as a castle wall, and the prize will be a signed copy from Sir Ezra and Sir Matt, as well as some other goodies. So we have the little pins and some
fun stuff.
Some fun stuff we'll throw in there. Copy of A Knight of Seven Kingdoms.
Which it's illustrated. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, it's
a hardcover, and I myself am not a fan of hardcovers, but I really like this one. I really like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked this book up so much.
It's so good
on the podcast.
And people keep messaging us. We just got one from I believe his name was Ryan Brady, who hits us up every Ryan Brady 7, I think, hits us up every so often. He literally just sent us an Instagram message before recording. And he was like, guys, I think it's hilarious. I love it. You hear a lot more about Bloodraven and a lot more about the Blackfire Rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get Sir Duncan the Tall, who's great. And
who's in the thick of it.
I really, and we've said this before, encourage people to go get the audiobook, because the audiobook is excellent.
Yeah, it's excellent.
But the physical book is amazing as well. So.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll do the drawing next Friday. I mean, really, so should we should we have people submit before?
Well, we could announce it on that Sunday.
That Sunday, okay.
Or on our Monday
show.
Monday episode. We record on Sundays.
Okay,
so our Monday episode, we'll announce who the winner was.
There you go. Awesome. And we're also going to have a second place prize, and that'll change from time to time, but it's second. We'll just do a second person, really not second place. It's the first person we draw from a hat or whatever gets the book, the signed book, and then the next person will do one more, and we'll do a Funko Pop.
Yep.
Or something. I'm thinking Funko Pop.
Yeah.
This first time. So.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is if we do a Funko Pop, then we can kind of maybe pick which one you want.
Yeah.
If you don't want Jon Snow, you can get Tyrion or whatever. Maybe not the super expensive Daenerys on the dragon. That's like $30.
Yeah, maybe not that one.
More of the standard ones here. Just like Robert Baratheon, it's a recession. So
exactly, yeah, exactly. So anyways, that should be fun. So go search for the phrase "thick as a castle wall." Send us the timestamp, title that email, Dragon Egg, and we'll be good. Okay, moving on.
All right, here, let's go ahead and head into some of the Ravens here.
This first one is just a quick little kind of a comment. A recent listener, Tanner. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I love the show. Y'all make my cubicle job bearable. This is the first podcast that has ended my 3-year Joe Rogan experience binge. Keep up the good work, and I'll do my best to show you off to all my friends. I was wondering, where do Patreon members listen to the extra episodes?
Yeah, so put that in here first because our Patreon has the Black Council episodes. Sir Matt and I are working on this Saturday, posting the.
Rogue Prince.
Rogue Prince, thank you. Yeah,
which is the Daemon Targaryen.
Yep.
And that's the lead up to the Dance with Dragons.
Yeah. So we're working on posting that on Patreon. So you can actually, there's a couple ways you can do it. If you go to the main, you have to be on a laptop. You can't really on your phone. If you have the app on your phone, you can just press play and listen right there. You can download the episode right to your Patreon app, and you're good to go. If you're on a computer and you want to, if you don't want to go between apps, like I listen on iTunes and to all my podcasts, and so when I support someone on Patreon, I go get their RSS feed. You have to kind of go to their actual, the front of their page. You can copy and paste the RSS feed into your player. And I actually just posted directions on this on the Facebook page, and I think it's pinned to the top of the page. If not, it's just a few posts down, and it kind of gives you directions on how to listen to those episodes. So the easiest way is just to download the Patreon app. You can send us messages that way. You can, vote on the polls, and you can just listen to those episodes right there in the app.
Yeah.
So, okay?
And you do, of course, have to be a patron.
Yeah.
To get them.
Now, sometimes we release content, though, that's just free to everybody. It's just like maybe if it doesn't fit in our format, like let's say we want to release something on a Tuesday, it's good to go ahead and follow it because we might do like if we're alive, like we're thinking about going to a con and like a live reaction from a con. Yeah, we're just posting that on Facebook, and we might not post it on the actual main podcast.
Right.
We might do like a quick summary, like, hey guys, this weekend we did this, but you know,
and
so
we also we have some theories recorded and stuff like that, and then for that extra kind of stuff, sometimes we do that on YouTube as well. So
yeah. So it's good to follow all those things and just kind of if you want to follow along, participate. Okay, next Raven here. A bannerman has no name.
Yeah.
Greeting, good sirs. I hope that you are both well. If you have already covered my question below and I missed it, I apologize. No worries, it's fine. Let's see here. What do we have? I would like to get your thoughts on how you think House Tully, and specifically the Blackfish, may play a part in the upcoming books. I am a House Tully fan first and foremost. No, we are not all either Stark or Targaryen only.
Yeah, preach it.
And I hope that that similarly how most of us believe will happen with what I totally misread that. Sorry. Foremost, and I hope that to how most of us believe this will happen with Dorne, Tully will be more instrumental in the upcoming books. Okay, yeah, so Dorne kind of, as we got into the series, Dorne becomes more and more involved and is a bigger player. So, yeah, hopefully House Tully does have a more instrumental role moving forward. I feel like the TV show has brushed over the fact that Edmure is not yet dead, and their premature killing of the Blackfish seemed to be a necessary convenience due to the constraints of time. Yeah. There are a number of theories out there regarding the Blackfish and House Tully, such as joining forces with Lady Stoneheart or rallying the forces in the Riverlands, still loyal to Tully and heading north to join the main battle, among others. I enjoyed your discussion on theories regarding Hoster Tuller's dying words, and I hope that something related to this seed planted by Gur comes to fruition in the future books. Nymeria, Lady Stoneheart, and the Blackfish could make a formidable combination, and then Arya heading south to join them would make sense and be a great way to keep Arya's path developing in such a way that she maintains her deep house loyalties but without following the same path as the more traditional Stark family members. That's interesting. You don't always really associate Arya with the Tullys, really, because of how similar she looked to, like Lyanna and just the Starks, He goes on to say, I do not have a firm theory on exactly what will play out with House Tully. I really just want to see them give the respect and attention that they deserve, given the house's rich history and personalities. That's true. The Riverlands, since the conquest, and House Tully, it's been a big.
House Tully is the real reason I think Robb Stark is able to do as well as he does, because he has the support of House Tully. Also, I will say, I think the coolest title is Lord Paramount of the Trident.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like super cool.
It's a pretty big deal, yeah. The Riverlands is such a key location that the rulers of the Trident region deserve to be in the thick of the action as it builds up to the climax. True. They do not deserve to dwindle into obscurity as the TV show seems to be determined to do with them. Thanks again for your time and efforts that you dedicate to the podcast. Sincerely, a bannerman has no name. Thank you for the Raven. Yeah, so Sir Matt, I'm going to look up something real quick, but initial take on that,
first of all, I do have to agree that House Tully does not kind of get the recognition that they deserve. I'll even say this, really, when you think of some of the Stark children, like Sansa, I don't, and maybe it's just because of the way of the people she interacts with. I almost think more of House Aaron as that secondary house, because it's her aunt and she goes there, you know what I mean, and then. In the show, she brings in the Knights of the Vale, to help Jon at the Battle of the Bastards, which probably is the way it's going to go in the books. If I just had to kind of take a broad guess, so yeah, you don't really think about the Tullys, and he's right. Edmure Tully in the show just kind of gets written off.
Yeah,
like you kind of forget that he's there. But really, the Riverlands is actually they're pretty strong. They're pretty I don't want to say like underrated kind of army and force, because they do fight with Robb against the Lannisters, and they're like, you know, I mean, they're helping like they hold Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I bet.
They do.
Like,
well, the other thing, you know, look at House Frey's relationship with House Tully, you know, and being slighted or whatever you want to call it, you know, they get a lot of attention too. So I'm kind of, you know, in agreement here that House Tully, you know, going forward, as you say, we've talked about where the last battle could happen.
A lot of people think it's going to happen at the Triton.
Right at the Triton. Right in. So, I mean, House Tully is going to be pivotal, and it's important, you know, that they get some focus. I just think it's interesting, like you just said, that Sansa does go to the Vale, and that Arya was actually originally trying to get back to, you know, the Riverlands, and to get in, you know, to her uncles.
Yeah.
You know, that was her original goal with the Hound.
You know, and there's a line from Arya, I believe it's Arya's first chapter. But it's certainly early in a Game of Thrones. I don't know why I keep going back to it. It's when Arya she runs away from Septon Bourdain. She wants to go see Bran, and she thinks it's going to be Robb and Joffrey or whatever fighting. And then she's having this conversation with Jon, and they're talking about how Joffrey has both sigils, right? Or in his banner, he has both of them. He has he has the stag and the lion,
right?
And he says to Arya, like, you know, what if you had that? And she's like, a wolf with a fish in its mouth.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. I always don't know why that line for some reason just always comes to my head, but I feel like there's something more to it.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just read real quick, at the end of here, Brendan, you know, and what's happening with the Blackfish at the end of this, because it's somewhat it was a little foggy to me. But so Queen Cersei sends Jaime actually to deal with the Riverlands to end the siege, right? He actually has like sort of like a parlay, right? He meets with Brendan, and Brendan comes out basically to hear the reasons why you know, the Blackfish didn't return Sansa and Arya, and to see Jaime's stump. I forgot that. He's kind of a
he's sadistic. Brendan Tully is sweet.
He's a badass.
He's sweet.
Yeah. So he
House Tully, by the way, is so Sir Ezra and I have talked about, like, if we were like, because we have the houses we just kind of support through the stories and stuff. But we talk about we've talked about what house do you think like you would actually be in, and I always say I think Sir Ezra, I don't know, he's just your personality and stuff. I just think a lot of the Blackfish. I just feel like the Tully. That is like
for sure
what house you'd be in.
Yeah. So let's see here. So they at one point Jaime also says to him, if you surrender and all this stuff, you can take the black and whatnot. He thinks, I'm just going off of a Song of Ice and Fire wiki here for a refresher. He thinks to Jon Snow, and I actually remember this from the book, and that he didn't, Cat didn't trust him, you know, and it was, or she just didn't like Jon, you know, and so he kind of wonders if he would be accepted there, or if the Lannisters, you know, helped to promote Jon to Lord Commander, you know, it's funny that, you know, politics aren't supposed to reach up to the wall, and, you know,
but they do,
you know, and
because they get ticked when Cersei is like queen, and like when you get to her POV chapters, I think she's having a conversation with Kevin, is they like, because Jon is having Stannis and his men kind of fortify the wall, and they ride up to him and they say, no, this isn't how this is supposed to go, and she's trying to think of a way to like put down Jon Snow.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, long story short here, when Jaime is trying to settle this, and I think at one point they offer to go over the walls, they want to smear him with arrows, you know, all this good stuff, but really it's kind of close to the show, and that Edmure can go in, and he's sent in and is able to you know, command that they give up the fortress, you know, there at River Run, and Brendan, once he gets in there, Edmure gives before he gives the castle to Jaime, he allows Brendan to escape, you know, by swimming, you know, underneath and kind of getting away. So in the show, we see this epic like battle scene. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, Sir Matt has said. The show does this, where you might not see him. We don't actually see him killed, do we?
No.
He just runs up the stairs and supposedly dies.
Right.
In battle, or maybe they mention it. They
you just
hear
hear you see him he goes up the stairs, and you kind of hear some like armor clanging, and then and that's kind of it. But do they do it the same way in the book? I'm like totally blanking right now. Where they send Edmure in. and like Blackfish just doesn't want him to.
Well,
remember, in the show they send in Edmure because he's the command. Like once he gets in the castle, they have to listen to him.
Yeah, I think so. Because it says
totally
Jaime convinces Edmure.
That's right.
To surrender the castle with the promise that Brendan and the garrison can take the Black. And so he does, I think, do that. I think he threatens to kill. I think it might be similar to like he's threatening his family,
gotcha,
type of thing.
Yeah.
So, and he goes in and surrenders, and basically everyone that's in there can take the Black, and it's basically going to be a Lannister keep. I mean,
right? Yeah.
So, but it spares. It's basically they're either all going to die, everyone in there is going to die,
right?
Or you can go in and save a bunch of lives.
Yeah,
is basically kind of the way Jaime looks at it. So now moving forward. Where does the Black? How does the Blackfish come back? Does he rally support? Does he circle back, as I always say, to Lady Stoneheart?
Yeah.
Are we back to her?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, by the way, for sending me back to her.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while. So he's declared an outlaw, and Jaime, after he resolves that the siege, I think it's Jonas Bracken and one of the Blackwoods talks about that they haven't seen him. He hasn't come to Raventree Hall and all this good stuff. So he's not to be found yet.
Right.
He's barely mentioned in the Dance of Dragons. It was Feast of Crows where the siege was taking place and everything was happening. So what do you think, Sir Matt? I mean, this is one of those things where you can kind of just, you're at the end of the road.
Yeah, I don't think he's dead.
Yeah.
I don't think he's dead. And this is something where I think the show. There's 2 deaths. I'm gonna air quote here in the show that I think maybe they didn't show you them die because it's a nod to what's going to happen in the books. Because it's always rubbed me the wrong way that you don't see the Blackfish die and you don't see Stannis die in the show. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like in the show and, also in the books is that Gur wants to make it as obvious as possible that they're dead, right? Like the Mountain doesn't just kill Oberyn Martell.
Yeah.
He like sticks, you know what I mean?
Oh,
he's like crushing his
There's
skull
no doubt
open.
that he's dead.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he's dead, right?
Yeah.
And so in the show, you have these 2 characters that are kind of predominant characters in Stannis Baratheon, who's like, a huge deal, and he and the Blackfish are killed off screen. That just seems odd.
Yeah.
It just seems odd to me. And the only thing I can think of is maybe it's like a nod, I don't know, to the fact that maybe there's something more of them in the books.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I can think of that they don't do that.
Yeah, I think the only thing in the show that they do with the Blackfish is I think they mention that he's
died. Yeah,
that he died, but I don't think they actually don't show.
They definitely don't show it.
So it's one of those things where
it's implied.
Yeah, but I mean, if he goes back to, let me go back to the Raven here real quick, just so I can shore up any more of these thoughts, because the idea is that he would go back to Lady Stoneheart and possibly Arya. Going south, maybe meet, and she's still over in Bravos and stuff,
right? Yeah, right now,
a long way to go, but perhaps could come back and go down and rendezvous there, because the Brotherhood without banners is split. You've got those, and I think it's great. I always forget this little detail that, that Eddard Dane has actually split and taken half, of the Brotherhood without banners, and he was. He was squiring under Beric Dondarrion, and he's like, what's going to happen there, man? That's where my mind's, wandering to. But I think it would be very different to see Lady Stoneheart with one of her daughters, Arya.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, that would be.
And we don't even know, too, with all of this, how, the way they did it in the show, Brienne actually is able to go into the castle and into the keep, and she's actually sent by Sansa. Not the case here. We believe that Brienne, if in her last meeting in the woods there, and she was hanging from a rope, is actually sent to bring Jaime Lannister back to Lady Stoneheart. So she's going for completely different purposes there in the books. It's very interesting, and it definitely seems like Gur's got a lot planned for that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But Brendan was also someone. The Blackfish was someone who I think he was in charge. He was in charge of a lot of Rob's outriders.
Right.
What do you call them? Scouts.
Yeah.
And so he eyes and ears type of guy. So he's somebody that they trusted, and people can rally around him. He's stubborn. I could definitely see him rallying some support. For Yeah, or I mean, think about this: if the Lannisters have complete control over Riverrun, and if they have, I mean, Sir Matt, are they going to send all of these men, to take the Black? What's going to happen along the way? Are they raided, and then the Blackfish gets his army back, and they're kind of like bandits moving from place to place, trying to rebel still, join up with the Brotherhood without banners.
Yeah.
So
didn't I'm looking at some back because I know he has like a pretty sweet history. Didn't he fight? He fought in the War of the Nine Penny Kings, didn't he?
I don't know.
Which is the final.
What, is it?
He did. Yeah, he fought in he fought in the War of the Nine Penny Kings, which was the final Blackfire Rebellion.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and he gained a lot of fame. Then he fought in Robert's Rebellion. Yeah, he's a boss.
Yeah, and I love his titles too. He's Warden of the South Marches, right?
Yeah.
Knight of the Gate, right? Mm-hmm. Formally, just super cool. So,
and like the way he got his sigil is super cool, and that like somebody called him like the Blackfish. It's like you're like instead of like the black sheep of the family. So he just thought it was funny and took it as his like own personal coat of arms. And that's what everyone calls him now. Yeah, he's a cool character.
He's cool,
and the guy who plays him in the show does I think a excellent job of playing that character.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. Great question. And if you guys have more thoughts on the Blackfish and maybe where he could, end up going and stuff, I always thought, gosh, that's why I say it every week, getting saturated with the show, I did remember this one though. I remember that he, that it didn't go the same way, and that, that he does get away, and we don't really know what his fate is going to be.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okie doke. On to the next Raven.
Mm-hmm. Which I believe is the Ghost of Harrenhal.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read this one. Was it last week? Yeah.
Well, first of all, we have to say thank you to the Ghost of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned this yet. I think we shared it on Facebook.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Winter is coming, guys. In case you had forgotten,
and he or she
okay,
went way out of their way.
Yeah.
To get these to us.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's so
the Ghost did.
The Ghost. Yeah. Yes. We had this came through what type? This came on horseback. So
essentially, yeah.
This wasn't sent by a Raven, but
no.
So this
a carrier Raven, possibly.
Maybe it's a big package. Anyways, we got this package from the Ghost, and the only note inside, I love it, was just winter is coming. And the way I kind of inferred from, it's like obsidian, it's dragonglass. Mm-hmm. We got dragonglass arrows. So, it's sort of like a wishing us good fortune in the wars to come. Mm-hmm. And so be prepared. Gather your dragonglass. Get your arrowheads. Prepare. Be ready. I think we should get a dagger, my friend. Yeah. I think we should actually get, a straight up dagger. So anyways, last week we had a good Raven, from the Ghost. Every week it's great. And it was about Sir Barristan Selmy, and I unfortunately, was just sort of bamboozled a little bit because, as I said, last week I sometimes forget where the thread ended. And so that's why, as we were doing this, I was telling Sir Matt, it's so important for me to go back and read A Dance of Dragons because, I remember some of their threads, but, there's so many different characters, and it's like, where did it end and where are they? A great resource for you guys, if you haven't come across this yet, is the Song of Ice and Fire app. Mm-hmm. You can actually, it's
basically the wiki.
It's great, and you can slide the dial, and you can actually see on a map where characters currently are. All of them. Mm-hmm. You can just put them all in.
Yeah. So the app is free, and you basically get like the map of Westeros, and you can zoom in and everything.
Right.
It's $20 to unlock the whole thing. You can actually, I believe you could. The way you buy it is like through spoilers.
Yeah.
So like, I've read this book.
Just buy the whole thing. It's worth buying the whole thing.
It's worth the $20. Absolutely. I never ever encourage people to buy apps because I'm kind of against that. I think it's kind of dumb and a cheap way to do it. But this app is worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so good sirs. Speaking on dragons, so here we go. Some quotes to support the Illyrio being a Targaryen / potential route for Daenerys to take back Westeros. So these are just some quotes, some stuff, some food for thought, things that we want to discuss here. Tyrion won a Dance of Dragons. Tell me, Tyrion said as he drank, why would a magister of Pentos give 3 figs who wears the crown in Westeros? Where is the gain for you in this venture, my lord?
Mm-hmm.
And, Illyrio says back, I am an old man, grown weary of this world and its treacheries. It is so strange that I should wish to do some good before my days are done, to help a sweet young girl regain her birthright. If Daenerys is a sweet young girl, the Iron Throne will cut her into sweet young pieces. Fear not, my little friend, the blood of the dragon flows in her veins. Tell me more of her. The fat man grew pensive. The frightened child who sheltered in my manse died on the Dothraki seed and was reborn in blood and fire. This dragon queen who wears her name is a true Targaryen. In a short span of days, she conquered Astapor, made Yunkai bend the knee, and sacked Meereen. Let's see. Mantari will be next. If she marches west along the old Valyrian road, if she comes by sea, well, her fleet must take on food and water at Volantis. Illyrio can tell a true Targaryen. Illyrio can tell a true Targaryen is that because he is one of them. So that's the question. Right. Basically, is that how he's able to tell? So we're getting into, is Illyrio a Blackfire or a Targaryen?
Yeah.
Is that okay. Maybe he sent ships to her in Meereen. He is closer than most and definitely knows where she is. I'm starting to think Illyrio might be making a return on his investment in Dany when his ships find her in the Dothraki Sea with Drogon.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. Then we can go into the second part.
The cheesemonger.
Yeah. Gosh, he's something. So we've talked a little bit about Varys and Illyrio, and maybe I'll read the second part because I think it does talk about Varys. Okay. So another quick here, a little PS. Tyrion 1. How is it that the spider became so dear to you? And the spider being Varys. We were young together, 2 green boys in Pentos. Varys came from Myr. So Illyrio and Varys grew up together, and back then they would rob people. They used the small children. That's what they would call them. They would call them mice, right? Mm-hmm. And Varys adopted the words "little birds" when rising to power in King's Landing. So that just kind of talks about the details, their closeness. So can Illyrio tell that Dany is a Targaryen because he is one himself? Question.
Well, I think I mean, I don't think it's that he can tell. I think he knows, obviously, she's a Targaryen. She has the look, and like he had to have known they came over because they came over kind of to him. But I think the true Targaryen is like a true ruler, like is more of like, oh, she's the real deal.
Yeah, and I wonder, but I also wonder if Illyrio is talking about the fact that this dragon's blood, right. And that if that's a part of any of this, because he talks about her being reborn in blood and fire, mm-hmm. Right there. So,
right here's a quote, little segment of a conversation. This is A Dance with Dragons, chapter 24, The Lost Lord. Illyrio this is Lamore, aka Ashardane, talking to John Connington. Illyrio could not have been expected to know that the girl would choose to remain at Slaver's Bay. John, no more than he knew that the Beggar King would die young, or that Khal Drogo would follow him into the grave. Very little of what the fat man has anticipated has come to pass. I have danced to the fat man's pipes for years, Lamore. Wow,
so basically pretends like he knows before it actually happens.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the
yeah? Basically, he's really good at planning out how things will come to pass. The more I think about it, so I actually just listened to the chapter where Tyrion basically calls out Griff and young Griff, and he realizes who it is, and he says that's where they're sailing, and they're on the Sea Maid, is that the name of the ship, mm-hmm. and they're kind of being attacked by the grayscale kind of people.
Yeah,
and is when Tyrion says to young Griff, he's like, yeah, if you had died, this whole thing would have been for naught. And then he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, I just, let me have a look at you. And he's like, yeah, the story of how you dye your hair for your mother hides the fact that your eyes are actually purple, not blue.
Yeah.
And you've been trained and fighting and arithmetic, and they're doing geometry together and all of these kinds of things. And so he realizes he's Aegon. He thinks he is Rhaegar's first son.
Yeah,
Aegon, who was killed.
Right. Yeah.
Potentially wasn't. But a lot of people think Aegon could be a Blackfire, and this is a lot of people think. So there's theories that the plan is to. Well, the plan was maybe to marry Aegon to Daenerys, and then we have a secure Targaryen.
Yeah, and it's just weird because.
And maybe that ends either House Blackfire or it just secures the Targaryen line.
He's playing a couple games, isn't he? Because I don't think he anticipated Viserys dying. Out there with Khal Drogo and stuff. It's just it's like he had two options. Or maybe several.
You want
as
many options as you can have.
Yeah. Because it's like if he has young Griff here, it's because Viserys is alive. And because Viserys is the rightful, if you're a Targaryen, rightful, king there. We've talked about all these issues with the Ascension and, bypassing the female line and all that kind of stuff, and now he has young Griff, who's aka maybe a Targaryen, Blackfire, what have you. Now's the time to bring him forward. Her brother's died and she's gained power. So boom, he's bringing her forward,
I think with Illyrio, and this kind of gets into their plan, I think it's more... There's a better chance that Varys is either Targaryen or a Blackfire, and that Illyrio just sees the potential of, well, if the Targaryens are back on the throne, because look what happened to Robert Baratheon. The Iron Crown dwindled away, and now they're millions and millions of dollars in debt, whereas when the Mad King was on there, it was overflowing with gold. So maybe for him, he makes more money if there's a Targaryen on the throne. So I think that's more of his... kind of idea of as to why he would want to do it.
Yeah.
Because, if the Targaryens have to fight another fight, maybe they're going to need sellswords. Maybe he has more ties to the Golden Company or something. Because, clearly he's just all about wealth and power. So,
yeah.
But I don't think he really wants kingdom ruling power. I think
one thing to remember about Illyrio, and this is, it can be confusing in the books.
In the show, you see him for 2 seconds. He's not a character in the show.
For sure. But in the books, he has a softer side to him in regards to his first love, and to the women who he loves, and so that sometimes you can kind of see where maybe he does have a side of him that's just a good guy wanting to do what's best for the realm, and he's getting older, and it's just his one last I am loyal and faithful to Varys, and if there's a connection to the Blackfires and Targaryens, cool, then he's going to, because he's obviously sheltered them,
right?
And taken them in when he was the beggar king, when Viserys was the beggar king, why do that? And he just did. So there's got to be some type of connection and tie there in my mind. What that is, I don't really know, but it'd be interesting if some of you want to go back and look at him talk about past loves and when he was a younger man and all this kind of stuff, because it seems like he gets almost kind of cynical at the loss of his wife, and then kind of, I don't know, turns into who he is now, but still has this glimmer of, good moments, So, but there's not a whole lot to him. There's a lot to him, but we just don't actually get a lot in the stories. It's sort of, except for Tyrion. If you look at his travel with Tyrion, you get a lot of information there. So
yeah, he is in 2 episodes of the show.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Just 2. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So anyways, yeah. So Ghost, as always, thank you very much. Thanks for the for the dragon glass.
Absolutely.
We're gonna need it in the wars to come. So yeah. And I think that's it for the Ghost this week. So we'll see what we get next week. And by the way, we did get another Raven from the Ghost, just kind of saying, the research, man. It's just there's a lot, and the Ghost always kind of stumps me. It's just tough. like I love it because like we're
it's
driving
a true joust back.
It's
and
a
forth.
true like we're all over the place, just talking about different theories and places where we left off in A Dance of Dragons and so on. So I just want to say thank you to the Ghost because you've really encouraged me to like reread all the ends of everyone's storyline. You have to do Feast of Crows too. You can't just do Dance of Dragons because some of that stops back in a Feast of Crows.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Okay, all right, let's move on. Next Raven here. What do we got? Who we got?
This is Sir Matt of Birmingham.
Yeah.
The Kingdom of Alabama.
All right.
Where, man, today I was walking to my car after work, and I was like, gosh, it is hot out. So it must be, I don't know how hot it is down there. But gosh.
Goodness.
Yeah. So, okay. In a recent episode, you mentioned not remembering how long Melisandre was at Dragonstone or when she got there. That was me. Chapter 15, Tyrion of A Clash of Kings. Littlefinger reminds the small council members that Varys told us some years past that Lady Selyse had taken up with a red priest, a few rabbits to chase down the rabbit hole. In A Game of Thrones, chapter 64, Mira Mazdur is preparing to perform the blood ritual to save Khal Drogo. She commands everyone to leave the tent and says, "My song will wake the powers old and dark. The dead will dance here this night. No living man must look on them." The chapter continues. Inside the tent, the shapes were dancing. She glimpsed the shadow of a great wolf and another man wraithed in flames. My question, are these not representatives of R'hllor and the Great Other, fire and ice? If so, why are their avatars working together in this blood ritual? Is there actually a war between the two deities, or are they just a cosmic version of the Wheel of Westerosi lords that Dany referenced in the show, a wheel that must be broken? A wheel of time. I know.
Oh my god.
End of series theory. Dany spends her formative years saving slaves, and Jon spends his saving the free folk. This is one of many ways that these two mirror each other.
Good point. Yeah.
That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
They are the same in that they both know what it is like to be looked down upon, helpless, and powerless due to uncontrollable circumstances. Dany is in exile, while Jon is the bastard of Winterfell. They have seen the misery inflicted on the weak by the whims of the powerful. Because of these shared experiences, my theory is that Dany or Jon, or maybe even Tyrion, will sit the Iron Throne in the end, but they will institute a form of democracy with representatives elected from the Commons. Please keep up the outstanding work. I'm a big fan. Kind regards, Sir Matt of Birmingham in the Kingdom of Alabama.
Well, Sir Matt, thank you very much. That's this is good stuff here.
Absolutely.
So let's dive back into this just a little bit here and talk about R'hllor, the Great Other. This conversation will never be over. I love it. It's fantastic though. But this isn't this is completely different. I guess type of lens to look at it. Yeah.
Real quick, before we jump into it, just because he slightly mentioned Tyrion, I want to remember something.
Yeah.
So in the chapter, in Jon's, I think it's Jon's first POV chapter, or maybe it's the second. It's where Jon is at the Great Hall, and they're eating, and Mance Rayder supposedly there, right? And he's having this conversation. When he leaves, he goes out and he has a conversation with Benjen. Or, excuse me, Tyrion.
Yeah.
And Lord Adam Parker pointed this out, that Tyrion's shadow is cast like as tall as it could be a king.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So in I want to. It's in A Dance with Dragons. I literally just listened to it. I don't remember which chapter it is because I'm just flying through the Tyrion chapters right now. Not John Connington, but someone on the boat. I'm blanking right now because I listened to it at work.
Oh, yeah, it could have been Duck or something.
Duck, yeah. Calls Tyrion a giant, like jokingly calls Tyrion a giant. And I just thought of the two, and I just thought it's an interesting question. Tyrion's like, no one's ever called me a giant, because Tyrion's like making up stories about himself. This is where he talks about how he learned how to tumble and things like that. And so he jokes about like being a giant.
Yeah. Interesting. I was listening to an interview with Gurr about the somersaulting tumbling thing.
Yeah, we both listened to that.
And he was like, it's a mistake.
It's a mistake. Yeah.
But he later on though, as someone
it.
mentioned, he brings up that he makes a story for a mistake. Like he goes ahead and he's clever later on in the somersaulting and how he did it. And
he says he's gotten like thousands of questions about like, why wasn't Bran at the feast?
Yeah,
when John, like in John's chapter, and he's like, I forgot
the horse. That, yeah, the horse
like,
that has two sexes or something.
Yeah,
there's a whatever. Yeah, just different things where it's a lot to keep track of. You know, so okay. Now the key quote here is,
or is it? Does he actually?
Is there? You're right.
And he's just lying to us about it.
So she glimpsed the shadow of a great wolf and another like a man, wreathed in flame. Mm-hmm. Right. So what is going on there? The question is, are they not representations of R'hllor and the great other, fire and ice,
or is it a wolf that turns into a man wreathed in fire?
Whoa. Yeah.
John is a wolf.
Yeah. And so is she doing, I mean, it's like blood magic, right? And type of thing. And, yeah, I don't know. She's in there kind of looking into the flames, right? I mean, this is Dany looking in, right? Is that the way it is? Inside the tent, the shapes were dancing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's a really good question. I've honestly not really thought much about the actual shapes that she sees and stuff, you know? So I'm kind of stumped on this one, you know? R'hllor, the great other. I don't know that it's that I don't know. I don't know that they're that in this specific, you know, situation that they are that one represents, you know, the great other, and the other one
I don't know.
R'hllor. Maybe you do. I mean, so tell me. Sir.
Well, I mean, think about this. You've got Mira Mazdul, and she is also trying to save Khal Drogo with the power of fire, right? And you've got her trying to save life. She's trying to save life, right, by keeping Khal Drogo alive. And what is she fighting against? Death, his impending death. And she uses blood magic. For one to live, one must die.
Yeah.
You
got something.
And then you've got ice and fire, which Melisandre tells Davos. She's like, it is always two. It's always life and fire, or fire and ice, life and death, light and darkness.
Yeah, let's just real quick. I'm just read her history because I think this is interesting. She's a god's wife in the temple of the Great Shepherd. You know, so that's where we kind of find her at. Her mother had been a god's wife before her and taught her all the spells and the songs. As a young girl, she traveled to Ashai. Wait, what? To learn the arts of the shadow binders. She also studied the birthing songs, the moon singers, you know, and so on here. Herbs, she knows herb lore in Dothraki and medicine. And the medicines of Maester Marwyn. So that's interesting. Yeah, I was looking for a connection, the direct connection to the Red Priests and priestesses. That's what I was looking for, but I didn't necessarily see one. And maybe there is. It might be more subtle than what I'm looking for. But yeah, I don't know, man. I've never paid much attention to her. To this character, you know, and in the magic that she works. The fact that had been to Ashai is pretty neat. But yeah, she says there will be no stallion who mounts the world, burning cities and trampling nations to the ground. Yeah, here's another good question. You know, mentioned by Sir Matt. Is there actually a war between the two deities, or are they just a cosmic version of the Wheel of Westeros? So let's talk about that for a second, because that's really what stands out to me. And Dany, and I have mentioned this before, Dany talks about breaking the wheel. Right. And I think, you know, when you think about these things mirroring, the history is starting to mirror current events, you know, and how things sort of like history repeats itself type of thing. We talk about that in our own history and stuff. You do kind of see some of that happening in Westeros, and she's trying to break the wheel, right? So is there this war that's just sort of that's just a back and forth struggle that really never ends? No one ever gains ground. It's just sort of, it's a part of like, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's what it seems like, right? Is that, and just the same thing with the Seven Kingdoms, is that there's always somebody else vying for power, and yeah. I think the core of this is getting back to, it's a song of ice and fire, you know, and what does that mean? You know, because you got to really remember that is what it's all about, is this ice and fire. So these are these two overarching themes, and the gods that represent those, it seems like would be R'hllor and the Great Other. I just don't necessarily see them in the flames here, but maybe they are. You see them. I mean,
if you've got the wolf, which,
but see, how do we connect the Great Wolf to the Great Other? The way we do is through Melisandre. When she calls what she believes is the Great Other. She sees the boy, which is Bran, there with Bloodraven. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, Sir Ezra, here we go. We go back to the crows and the ravens here. God. But if it is the three-eyed crow that gets, AKA the Great Other or something, that gets the dire wolves down to the Stark children to protect them, and then it is this idea that Ned says, like, the gods sent us these wolves and I killed one of them. Thinking about it, so is it the Great Other that looks out for the Starks?
Shame.
I don't know.
Christmas.
Oh
gosh, that's just crazy.
What? Here's an idea. Here's a rabbit hole.
So mixed up.
What if the Great Other is actually creating the White Walkers, not as this ultimate foe to defeat like all mankind, right? They're not like this nuclear weapon. What if it's like? What if it's totally crazy?
Yeah, okay.
I'm about to say this then. Yeah. What if it's like, well, the White Walkers can defeat the dragons, and what if it ultimately is actually just supposed to be this war between the wolf and the dragon?
Okay. Yeah. A Song of Ice and Fire.
But then like the Starks, because winter is coming, right? Yep. Which we talked about. Does it actually mean like, oh, we're preparing for it, or does it mean no, winter is coming? Like it's our rally cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. Or maybe it's like their own version of the Doom. Like the Great Other is, has its own version of the Doom, and it's I don't know. Yeah. It's if the Doom didn't happen because they built the wall.
Right. Yep. It's too much for me right now. It's tough. It's good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know because it gets so...
Because when we think about this, we keep thinking that, oh, it's a Song of Ice and Fire, and Ice and Fire are supposed to come together. But it's also kind of believed that it's a fight between ice and fire.
Yes.
So then you have the Starks who, if the Starks represent ice, then it actually should be a war between ice and fire. But it just seems like Jon Snow and the Starks would be fighting against ice with fire. You know what I mean? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, and it's like, I know in the show they're gearing up more towards the marriage of ice and fire,
right?
Type of thing, like the union, to fend off something, evil. But it very well may not be that way in the books.
Yeah.
You're right. It's they're fighting. That one presses this, pushes south, the other one pushes north, back and forth. They're vying for control and stuff, And again, sometimes, Gur has said it's not like God. It's not like one of these gods is going to step out on Westeros and just, it's going to be a battle of the gods or whatever. It's just their influence.
Yeah, it's not a clash of the Titans.
Right. They said this subtle influence on these players, and so it does get kind of muddled, and I think that's the way he wants it. So. Another really good point, though, is the connection between Dany trying to save slaves and then Jon, helping the free folk. I think that is a really cool thought there, just that the two mirror each other. And then they are the same in that they both know what it's like to be looked down upon, helpless, powerless due to uncontrollable circumstances. Dany is an exile, Jon is a bastard. They have seen misery, etc. Because of these shared experiences, my theory is that Dany or Jon or maybe even Tyrion will sit the Iron Throne. So there you go. I think a lot of people have kind of, thought that Dany, Jon, and Tyrion. I think a lot of people are on the boat that, you could, how crazy would that be to see Tyrion sit the Iron Throne?
Yeah.
And then he says that they will institute a form of democracy with representatives elected from the commons. That's interesting.
There's
breaking the wheel.
That actually was the theory suggested in Talking Thrones. Air quotes here, plot leaks for the upcoming thing. Would they get rid of the Iron Throne and they say everything's going back to kingdoms, and so they're going to go back to the Seven Kingdoms, or you go to some form of like democracy.
Wow, that's crazy. Crazy.
Where they're elected. Although I will say this, based upon the way things work in Westeros, I think a democracy would be even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Be
crazy.
Because I don't think it would be like a United States democracy, and not that our system's even that great in the first place with hacking and meddling and just lobbyist groups buying everything. That's basically what you'd have. You'd have people like Littlefinger who are just become lobbyists. And things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Sir Matt of Birmingham, I'm gonna have to think a little more on this and possibly get back to this one a little bit, because I want to do. Sometimes people will send us stuff, and this is not one. I read the first two beforehand, but I did not have a chance to really read this one, and I like to go look stuff up. You guys caused me to dive back into the books and look up different things. So I think I'm going to do that with this and possibly come back to it next week. So I'm going to put a note on myself here. So come back to next Friday.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read. We asked you guys to send us some of your stories, how you got into the series. And this one is from Sir Grant the Yellow Knight. I'm probably going to do one of these in like the main show and just keep.
Yeah, we got quite a few. And honestly, if you have a story and you haven't sent it to us, BTK Cast, man, send us the story, how you got into the series and everything. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Sir Grant the Yellow Knight. Just a little bit about me. In the world of fantasy novels, I started with The Hobbit when I was younger, followed by The Lord of the Rings. I have since been through both again. I finished my third go-round at a Wheel of Time series, and always love it. I didn't come across Gur Martin's work until I've seen a few free episodes of A Game of Thrones come up on my satellite TV. I was immediately hooked and bought all 6 seasons to get caught up. Yes, I was that far behind. I have since finished A Song of Ice and Fire, or what is available. That is, I've followed up by reading A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and I'm currently halfway through A World of Ice and Fire. Hey, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
He's probably right with us. On the immediate list of books to read this year are Fire and Blood, Fall of Gondolin, and the
Baron and Luthien.
Luthien story.
Yeah.
I've read The Silmarillion and loved it, so I'm excited to go deeper into those stories. Other books I take interest are more military accounts of history. Some of my favorites include Lone Survivor, American Sniper, Shooter, 12 Strong, and Homer's Iliad. I have a 7-year Army career where I served as an infant soldier, but I didn't read a lot. I sort of fell out of touch with the fantasy genre. Since I have been out, I have finished school, and I've dove headfirst back into it. Over time, I will continue to send more about myself. If you are interested to know more, your friend, the Yellow Knight. Absolutely interested to know more. So
Sir Grant. I mean, that's awesome. That's The Hobbit is the first book that I kind of read, and
that's probably the first fantasy. I mean,
for a lot of us,
other than I think it's not really fantasy. I guess it's kind of like elementary school. I think I read like Bridge to Terabithia. I read Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that was actually my first entries. It was like 3rd, 4th grade or something like that. Mm-hmm. Read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we all we all liked. I really loved it, and I was like, wait. And then I found out, wait, there's more of these, and so I dove in and read the whole thing.
His connection to Wheel of Time. I mean,
I know
it. So I think I said this in my story that I started Wheel of Time and I had to stop to get into Game of Thrones, and then had to come back to it, because I wanted to read it before the series had actually got out there. But people have asked us, because we have other projects too, podcasting projects. When are we starting Wheel of Time podcast? And the answer is probably never, because it's just too daunting. It's 15 books. How would you ever? If you did a chapter a week, okay, we'll finish in 30 years. Yeah, and so basically, guys, we'll do it.
We'll do it at some point. It's on the back burner. It's gonna happen.
The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is so long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. Hey, the Dragon Reborn.
Hey, who's a better dragon, Daenerys or Randall Thor? Okay,
good one.
Yeah, I like the Hobbit. No, I think I like the Hobbit as a book better than Lord of the Rings, but I definitely think the Lord of the Rings movies are better.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's some avid reading there. Getting into the Silmarillion and stuff, man. Woo, that is some Deep stuff. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sir Grant. And again, continue to send those stories. We would love to read your stories on Fallout Friday and and again, not even on the main show. We've got 4 or 5 still in
absolutely
in the old inbox that we're saving just to kind of spread out and stuff. But if we get more, man, I mean, we want to read those stories and because it is neat to kind of hear how you got into it and stuff. And it's nice when you find somebody too. I have a lot of respect for another podcast that I listen to, guys who've been reading it, and to hear their perspective from the early 90s, moving forward and having to wait for those novels. My goodness, I was kind of that way with Wheel of Time, waiting for Brandon Sanderson to finish up the series, and I was like, well, crap, I'll just start back with Game of Thrones and just, plow through it. So,
Sir Grant also super excited about Fire and Blood this year.
Yes.
Yeah, very excited because even now as we're going through, I've been listening to the Rogue Prince, the audiobook, to get ready for our Patreon episode about Daemon Targaryen, the lead up to the Dance Dragons. We're going to get so much more. This book isn't going to have Blackfire Rebellion, but it is going to have more of Aegon's Conquest and the Dance of Dragons, which is really the big precursor to Blackfire Rebellion. A lot of the same stuff happens. It's a lot of the same reasons.
So
you know what I really think we're going to get?
Yeah.
I think, this is my guess, is that Jaehaerys, the Conciliator, there's this 70-year period where it's just like, everything was good.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you.
I think that's what we're going to get. I think that's going to be a big part of it. We're going to see more about it. We'll get a lot more of those kings who we haven't learned as much about.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So those other stories like the Rogue Prince and Sons of the Dragon, like Sons of the Dragon is buried in a book called The Book of Swords, and you can find it separated. They're
all buried in things.
Yeah. But my point is, I think they might actually take those stories and I think you might recycle them into Fire and Blood, because they're all about the Targaryens. And if you go listen to our Black Council, you'll definitely hear the depth and the dialogue and the back and forth that you get. Just a quick snippet for the Rogue Prince. The 2 different versions of the story by is it Mushroom?
Yeah,
Mushroom, the dwarf.
He's the jester.
Yeah,
he's like Moon Boy.
Yeah,
except Cersei wasn't him.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
It was long dead.
Yeah. So, but he tells a tale that, man, I mean, it's like, who do you believe? There are 2 completely there's some similarities, but they're very different tellings of Rhaenyra's relationship or not relationship with Criston Cole and Daemon Targaryen. So, I think Fire and Blood's going to have. I think it's going to be similar writing style to what we got in those little offshoot novellas. Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Just because I just listened to this.
Yeah.
So Tyrion, when he's sailing and he kind of realizes where he's at. He's thinking about his histories and stuff like that.
Right.
And he realizes kind of, I'm like over by like Volantis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He is talking about he again references some of the things, how some of the Maesters have disputed historical facts, stuff like that. There's a book he's talking about there's a true the full copy no one has, and he's like, I wonder if one of those chapters is over here in this great library, and he references that the book, oh god, I've been blanking on what it's called right now, is sealed away in the bottom of the Citadel.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man,
it is like really old and possibly has all kinds of secrets.
Well, I mean, the show will tell you right now that there's that basically those old record books that we kind of dismiss, are very telling. I think that's just unreal that we read a novel where the author, is telling us through. I mean, look at what John Aaron was trying to find in a book of genealogy, right? Just basically, the traits, the phenotypes that are kind of passed down or whatever between, father to son and so on. That becomes super significant. And actually, the more I've looked at the seed is strong and trying to piece together how different characters might look, or who they might be, who their parents might be. You have to kind of consider that book a little bit. So, anyways, okay. And also next week, remind me, Sir Matt, I have a theory. I'm gonna kind of I had a little what do I call this, like heartbreak. Oh gosh, I'm always speculating, theorizing, writing up stuff, and I was working on one, working, and then finally I came across a quote from George that basically put it to bed, kind of possibly about 90% to bed. So I want to share that next week. So don't let me forget. I will write that down. It basically has to do with Rhaegar's children. So very cool. Little thought that I had, and I want to see what you guys out there think about it. So anything else this week, Sir Matt?
Nope, that is it. That is it for us this week. Sorry, guys, kind of a shorter episode, I guess. We have a lot more Ravens, but we have one that literally is so long.
And I'm I kind of rushed Sir Matt today because I got a little rendezvous I got to get to. But next week we have a Raven from Sir Gibbs, discussion on Jon's true parentage, and as Matt just said, Drew sent us a Raven about bloodlines that is just huge.
Yeah.
So it's gonna.
We just need some research time.
Yes, we do. Sometimes we take a peek at them, and I'm like, okay, and we want you guys to know too. We try to give our best effort on every Raven that we get too. So it's just sometimes you never know where the content is going to take you.
We record typically on Thursdays. The episode goes on Fridays. So you have up till Thursday to send it to us. So sometimes we get these really long ones, and we get them on like Wednesday night or Thursday morning. We go to work, and we get off work and come back, and it's like I don't have time to dig all the way through.
But that's okay. That just means
that's fine.
It's going to come up next week, and you're going to get our best effort.
Yeah. So
Alrighty.
All right, guys. Well, that is it for us this week. And in the words of House Buckwell, pride and purpose.
Who the hell
is House Buckwell?
No,
they're a reference.
Oh, they okay.
Yeah.